Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. You are officially being recorded. Thank you for being here. Yes, you can have your AI tools. Welcome to our first episode of the Road to CIVTAK Roundtable. Great to see people rolling in. This is wonderful. Last year we did about 4 or 5 of these leading up to CIVTAK, and it was great hearing about all the people that ended up going because they are part of these roundtables. But part of this is just to be a virtual event to continue to build excitement and awareness about all things TAC and CivTAC to get you to come and participate. I am going to throw the call for submissions in the chat. So it actually just came live today. So if you aren't aware of it, there's an open call for submissions. The website also has all the information too. But make sure you put it on your calendar. It is November 4, 5, 6 in Washington, D.C. And again, this is a first of a monthly series leading up to this. And so for everyone to know, we're going to kind of just jump right into this. This is our first roundtable leading up to all things CivTAC. And I'm Kevin Sofen, your moderator today. And today's session's all about demystifying TAC. What is it, how it works, and really why it matters across public safety and emergency response. You're going to hear from a couple familiar TAC OGs that you are probably familiar with who have been the ones shaping TAC across all public safety and on the ground. So in today's session, again, great to see people entering. We're going to talk about things like interoperability aspects of TAC and why it's a good platform to integrate with, real world use cases across police, fire, wildland, DOD, and emergency management, and how TAC is evolving to meet public safety and DOD needs at scale. Our featured guest, again, great to see people who are admitting. Wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like playing dual role here of admin and moderator. We got VandenHeuvel from Texas DPS, Cory, the TAC Public Safety Foundation, Dave Zader from IAFC, who is a IAFC Wildland Fire Policy Committee, and AJ Johansson with Corona Fire Department. They're all going to give about a 1-minute intro, and then all of them are going to give about a 6-minute presentation about different aspects of TAC. So in that time, I ask that you keep your camera. If you want to have your camera on, please do. But fire up the chat. This is meant to be an opportunity for you to kind of be selfish here and ask questions. So after the presentations are done, it is meant to be sort of an open kitchen table where you can ask questions. You can drop questions in the chat. You can raise your hand, raise your physical or virtual hand. So I just ask that you please be respectful. Don't say anything inappropriate. And try not to hog the microphone. We're all adults here, and we all got something to say. But most importantly, just be respectful of one another. So and don't forget to check out the links of CivTAC. So without further ado, we're going to do a couple quick intros here from all the speakers, and we're going to jump into AJ's presentation first because he is on call. So first, Dave, we'll go with the order of intros. Dave, Jared, Cory, then AJ for some quick intros here.
Hi, thanks for everybody for being here. I'm Dave Zader. I'm probably one of the original TAC adopters for public safety. I got introduced to it really before it was declassified. I have spent about the last decade trying to advocate for its adoption. I worked for the city of Boulder as a wildland fire management officer, and I had worked in a variety of other public safety roles, and basically every conceivable role in public safety you could think of other than law enforcement. So have a wide use case of what TAC could be used for in my head.
And also, everyone, if you want to fire up the chat and tell us where you're from, your name, what department you're with, what agency you're with, that'd be great. So we'll go Jared, Cory, then AJ.
Hey, everybody. Jared VandenHeuvel, Director of Public Safety Solutions at the Texas Department of Public Safety based out of Austin. I've been here for about 15 years. The majority of that's been kind of on the public safety tech and communications side of the house. My team has been fielding TAC since 2021. We pivoted in 2022 to really trying to move toward more of an enterprise rollout, but also especially to make it a tool from the outset where we would host other agencies. So, day to day, not everybody's on it, of course, but I mean, we probably host regularly, I'll just say dozens of agencies. We surge a lot for special events as well for people for one-time onboarding. So thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Jared. Cory?
Hi, everyone. Cory Foy. So I'm probably the least OG out of the OGs that are here. I've been involved with tax since around 2023. My background is public safety and technology at the intersection of that, specifically wilderness search and swiftwater hurricane deployments, kind of the rescue side of things. But in the past couple of years, we've grown to deploy it to a lot of large scale events. So that's a lot of my background. And then I'm also serve as the tax me for the U.S. Capitol Police. I run the TAC Public Safety nonprofit, as well as a company called Flight Tactics that is developing new iOS TAC clients for the community.
Thanks, Cory. And to round us out, AJ.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. My name is AJ Johansson. I work for Corona Fire Department in Southern California. I'm a 32-year fire service professional. Did about 10 years in Wildland, starting out between Forest Service and Cal Fire, and then have been local government since 2005 here with Corona. Paramedic, hazmat captain, served on incident management teams, and know what it's like to do this without technology. So I think that's probably one of the big reasons I love TAC so much is I remember the kind of the confusion and chaos before these sort of tools land in our lap. I've been using it in 2018, and that's when I met Dave Zader. And yeah, just a big advocate, and hopefully we can get some more traction here in the near future and get more folks showing up at in DC in November.
Love it. Well, so now we're going to go into presentations and more kind of like casual conversations amongst all the four speakers. And then after that, we are going to turn it open to the audience. If you got a question, ask it. If you got a comment, drop it. Use the chat to document it before it happens. So first, we're going to throw it to AJ first, who is on call. And AJ, I'm going to spotlight you. So you are going to become big for everyone and yourself. So we're going to throw it to you now. And AJ, the floor is yours.
All right, let's see this. Is this going to work?
Yeah, I see. I don't see the PowerPoint mode. Maybe if you want to.
Okay. Let's go escape. Let's get out of this. What do you see? I guess.
I thought kind of like your whole PowerPoint screen with a couple slides on it.
Oh, you didn't see. All right, let me go back to share.
Wasn't in presentation mode.
All right, I got dual screens going on, so I'm gonna get rid of the dual screen and see if that may help. All right, let's go this. How's that?
Yep, that's good.
I think that was the issue, dual screen. I tried to get too techy. All right, this is just a short presentation here, 6 slides. And to start out with why TAC? I mentioned before that, I started my career in 1993, and we had one portable radio on the fire engine. When we got a call, I would pull out a pad of paper and write it down, and then I'd hop in a fire engine and pull out a Thomas Brothers paper map and flip through that map and navigate to the call. When we got there, there was no visibility of where anybody was dismounted on the once it got away from the fire engine. And again, one radio to communicate back with folks. So I've watched this kind of evolution of technology, right? I watched when we got our first computer in the fire engine, and then we had some kind of rough mapping. That helped us get to calls quicker, but still nothing once we left the fire engine. And I, starting my career, I was enamored with GPS radios when I was on the hotshot crews, and that kind of carried me throughout the career. Kind of a tech nerd, when mobile compute came out, getting the phones, and I have a GIS background, and got into Wildland fire incident management side in the situation unit, where we're getting data, and we're trying to arm operations with good data to help them make actionable decisions. But the time it took to get that data to the folks, by the time we're using printed maps, by the time we get it to them, that map's old, so on and so forth. So when TAC landed into my lap, I saw the value of that kind of real-time information. So why TAC? Because it's real time or it can be near real time. And we'll kind of go through the rest of these slides here. It's a universal platform. So I talk about wildfire a lot, and of course, me and Dave kind of have that connection, doing this for the federal government and all the way through local government, and from initial attack, small incidents that emerge to large incidents. And it's a great epic. It really, TAC was built for the warfighter, but I feel like, wildland fire is really probably the biggest overlap. This large mobilization of resources. A lot of times, a lot of chaos, confusion, fog of war. What's going on? Where are people? And then also many times done in areas where you don't have great comms, where all you do have is an LMR radio. So, but what I like about TAC is it wasn't built for one specific mission. It can be used in a variety of missions, from law enforcement. It could be a search and rescue, could be a waterborne thing. It really doesn't matter. It integrates UAS, FMV. So that's right, another big reason. A lot of tools you'll see, which are great, were built for a specific mission and maybe adapted to other things. But I will not. I don't have the silver bullet slide on here, but if you've ever seen me do a TAC presentation, I end with the silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet. TAC can be added to your mission set. So you can still use a mission specific application and just switch apps. It's an open foundation to build on. This is government off the shelf solution. So you may have heard of something called COTS, which is a commercial off the shelf. This is GOTS. This doesn't mean that it's a bunch of E4s programming on TAC at the government. There is, plenty of commercial businesses that build TAC for the government. But what's great is it's this open foundation. If there's something you want to do with TAC that doesn't meet your specific mission, you can build a plugin. And you don't need anybody's permission to do that. You can develop the software, and it's built on, a cursor on target messaging platform. So everything's open for you to build. That's one of the great things that about TAC is it's not locked down. There isn't a board of directors that you got to go to get permission to build enhancements. Multi-network capable. I think this is lost on a lot of people. Most of us are using TAC over LTE. We're connecting to a TAC server, but TAC at its core was not born with the TAC server. It was meant as a peer-to-peer tool for a warfighter to go into a foreign land and stay connected to your local teams, Blue Force tracking. So at its core, it was meant to be deployed peer-to-peer. TAC server came later. So I use this no cell, no problem kind of analogy that if in TAC, I don't need cellular connectivity to still work peer-to-peer. There's a variety of other networks I can use to stay, like mesh networks, to stay connected. And now we can backhaul those to other locations. So if you are out in the middle of nowhere, you can at least have visibility of your local teams at a smaller level. With the advent of now, SAT to cell coming in the near future, that's really going to add that. But what I love about it is it can be used in your PACE plan. You can use a bunch of different communication networks to work, and you don't need a server. Sure, you can bring a server to the edge, but you absolutely don't need a server to operate. So it's very different than a lot of other applications out there. A lot of folks here, like you might hear, works offline in another application. What they're referring to is the application still works. You can capture your progress, but other folks won't see that progress until you sync back to the server. TAC again can work peer-to-peer. And then fusion of data. So you have real-time video, and when I say video, not just video watching a screen, but geospatial video. Where is that video, and where is it occurring on the ground? It's very different. UAS, UAV applications, you can fly a drone in TAC. You can bring a variety of vector and raster data in, chat, all of these things, are just become, so powerful in TAC. It's very different than than in a lot of other systems. So it's your oyster. You can bring in whatever you want and visualize it in TAC. And then what's my last slide? Why not? You get to the point of you mention all these great things, and why not? And that's what you really have to ask yourself. Why am I not looking at this? What are the barriers? One thing that is different about TAC is that it's from the government. So you're not going to get spammed your email inbox, or you're not on LinkedIn, a bunch of Salesforce stuff. It is from the government. Now, we use the term free loosely. There is cost to it. You have to buy a phone. The government's not going to buy that. They're not going to stand up a TAC server for you. However, if you look at this capability that's in here, the government's already paid for this development and continuing development. You owe it to yourself to at least have an informed decision if it's the right tool for you. All right, we'll end it there.
Thanks, AJ. All right, we're going to keep rolling through these short presentations. Jared, Zader, Cory, who drew the short straw? Who wants to go next? I'm the voluntold you, Zader.
Unmute. All right. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
So I didn't make a big presentation. I just wanted to, firehouse chat, just sit around the table. But the way I got introduced to TAC was, I guess, unorthodox or somewhat unorthodox. But I came from it sort of from an evolution of learning. I started in the fire service in the late 80s. We had a paper-based map book, which was a huge improvement over just looking up a map, looking up information in a map. It was like every street had a page, and it had directions from the firehouse, which was a big evolutionary leap in the previous technology that we had been doing. And then I got into managing like very large search and rescue incidents with the National Park Service, with the Appalachian Search and Rescue Conference. And I was always going to new areas where I had no idea where I was. And we were always trying to assemble maps, and we were doing stuff with Mylar to try to build, products to give to people to make search segments. And then, I worked I was in Wildland Fire, and I was always traveling with my helitack crew, and we never had good maps. We never knew exactly where things were. So we were always struggling to find information. And when I got to the city of Boulder, I will say you learn the most when you get your ass kicked. And we had a significant fire that was like on the north side of the city called the Old Stage Fire. And I remember I was like trying to defend this huge subdivision of homes and a bunch of other homes. And I was just looking at quads, and they were all outdated. And I enacted this plan. And the next day, and I was new to the city there. The next day, I went out and I looked at where the fire had burned, and I realized I had constructed line like 100 yards away from a big 6-foot wide sidewalk. And I was determined to never make that stupid mistake again. And so I built this huge structure protection plan for the entire city, the western side of the city of Boulder, which has enormous wildfire threat. And I built it all in paper, the same way that you would like scroll through a map. And the way I built it wasn't actually in Google Earth. I just took screenshots and built it so as you flip the pages, it would be like you were scrolling on what we do now on a mobile device. And that really changed the way that we fought fire. We had pre-plans, we had information, and we started building really intense pre-planning efforts based on this mapping system that I built that was completely paper-based. And then Granite Mountain hotshots got burned over, and I got introduced to TAC through my father, who was in Special Operations Command. There was a big effort from them to transfer the technology. There was already thoughts of it, but no one had really, made a big effort into it. And I just happened to be at the right place, right time, with the right connections, and I was introduced to TAC. And that kind of blew my mind that we could share and see information on one map. We could all have the same information. And I think everyone, even to this day, is still in sort of that same, you know, at some place in that evolution, you know, whether they're working off paper-based stuff. I mean, we always used some apps back, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were using apps, you know, that were coming out, but we were constantly switching between apps, you know, and trying to keep track of all that information and where it is in time and space takes a lot of brain power. You know, you're gonna be sitting in like, you know, nice, you know, comfortable air conditioned car with a coffee cup, you know, where you have the most ability to do good thinking. And that's just not really that feasible with, you know, when your initial attack, you might be the initial attack IC on something, or, you know, some evolving incident or a mass shooting, whatever it is. You don't have the ability to just sit in a car and think, you know, very, very clearly. So having information pre-planned on a digital device that you could take with you anywhere, and even if you don't have connectivity, that you might have that information downloaded onto the phone to where you can stay mobile and still, you know, reference items is truly crucial. And it really changed the way that I thought about, you know, the importance of pre-planning for incidents, because I think we're really at a crux where, you know, our manpower, or, you know, people power is oftentimes not ever going to be what we need. We have much larger incidents than we can manage, or even, you know, have the people to manage, and we have to focus on what's the most crucial thing. And the only way we're going to get to deploy those people to the most crucial areas is by having good situational awareness. And I really learned that, you know, as a firefighter early on, you know, like much like AJ, you know, when I always used to laugh that, you know, our rescue company had like 7 guys on it, and we had one radio, you know, and we'd split into 2 crews. So we always joked around like, oh, we'll just get like a tin can and some string to maintain SA. And that's just the nature of what it was. And we're still kind of in that role where we don't really have good situational awareness. I mean, everybody's got a radio for the most part. But I learned early on that, you know, having a radio gave you information, and information was just so crucial to achieving the objectives of any incident, you know, to maintain that information. So, you know, early on in my career, it was absurdly expensive at, you know, at the age of like 20 to buy a BK radio. But I got one because I went out and bought one on my own. The government, it didn't, you know, wasn't going to provide me one. So I was like, I want to be able to know what's going on the fire. I will be safer and I'll be more effective. So I bought a radio, and that's kind of how the evolution has gone. You know, now I've got like, you know, when I found TAC, it was really, you know, a huge game changer in my mind that everybody ought to know about. And, you know, kind of without much authorization, I just started going to talk to people. I went to conferences. I would pay my own way to the conferences and talk to people about TAC. It's just a really incredible tool that everybody has access to. And I think one of the things that I really loved about TAC, and why I have always been such a you know, huge proponent of it over other types of technologies, is the fact for like every dollar that you put into it is a dollar of development, not just for you, but for everybody else. So collectively, we're better together by building TAC out for whatever job it is that we need to do. Everybody's got their one little thing that they need to do in TAC. If we put enough people together and, you know, fundraise to develop that, that becomes a tool for everyone. So everybody benefits from collective development of it. I'll just kind of leave it there.
You're muted, Kevin.
I'm on mute. Thanks, Dave. We're going to keep rolling with throw it to Jared, then Cory, and then it's going to be open dialogue amongst the community. So, Jared, I'm going to spotlight you now, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Something that I decided I wanted to talk about a little bit is, you know, in public safety, the standard is everybody carries an LMR radio. It's a well-worn standard, and we fight like hell, even with an interoperable technical standard in place. We still have to fight like hell to get people all to be able to talk successfully through training, through SOPs, and all that stuff. But let's say you get it right, and you've got a multi-agency scene, and it's chaotic, and everybody's prepared. Everybody's got the right radio channels. Everybody's got the right training. They can all talk, but that also means they can all talk, right? And on a busy scene, it quickly gets to be where several people are all stepping on each other at once. You get busy tones, important messages can't get through. And what I think you'll find is that a substantial portion of your radio traffic is oriented around where am I? Where's my buddy? Where's the person in need? How do I get to you? Those types of questions. And those types of questions are really well answered by having a map, a live map with the dots on it. So we are promoting TAC as an imperative. If we really want to have a functional scene, you can't waste critical airtime asking questions that an application can solve for you, right? So on that point, we're fortunate to have P25 as a standard in the radio world, but when it comes to data, it's totally Wild West. It's actually more fragmented, I think, than it's ever been. So why do we feel so strongly about TAC? It's a few really important features. Features. Everybody knows TAC is, quote unquote free. Of course, it's not truly free. There's cost in your time and potentially equipment and all that other stuff. But this is important because, in all honesty, agencies aren't willing to shell out money for interop solutions. That's what I see all the time. What they're going to pay for, what they're going to sink all their money into is a very agency-centric solution that's oriented completely around that agency's day-to-day needs. So you think from a location standpoint, most agencies have a CAD. Your dispatch knows where your people are. It breaks down immediately when you have to work with other people across your boundaries. And then there's no solution because you're not using the same CAD as all your different permutations of neighbors. And so we typically have no plan for that. And so we think like TAC is the right price that agencies are willing to pay for interop. And that's what they're willing to pay. It's free. Also think there's kind of an interesting twist to that as well is what you see getting funded a lot of times is what leadership wants, right? And what leadership wants in their map is something that really works well in an operations center or an air-conditioned room. There's a heavy emphasis on Esri. There's a heavy emphasis on dashboards. There's a heavy emphasis on making your people fill out forms and collect data to populate your dashboards. Whereas TAC is built truly, I would say, from the ground up for the warfighter, and that extends, I think, very well to the frontline first responder. Another thing, I think I've got a little slide that I decided to queue up on the fly here. So I think this will help illustrate my point about things being free. Oh, maybe I should use this thing more often. We'll try that. All right, I'm going to pull up this slide. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is an example of a U.S. Marshals task force using our TAC system out in El Paso. Now you can see from their call signs on the left, everybody's rocking a USMS call sign, but in reality, maybe only a couple of people are actually feds. You might have 6 or 7 different agencies that are working that scene. Now, do you think the U.S. Marshals sponsor a SAS license for a situational awareness solution for the random people they may work with? I don't think they do because the Marshals are using our system, right, and onboarding people so that they can have a common map. And we're very thankful that we have some good advocates in the Marshal Service or within our own agency that work detached to Marshals task forces. This was an example where we actually had 2 officer-involved shootings where Marshals were involved back-to-back days, one in Houston, one in El Paso. In the case of the one in El Paso, the guy was shot in the face, and fortunately, the scene was not a total cluster. Fortunately, they had done their pre-planning and they were working from a common map. You can see there on the right, one of my friend in the Marshals Task Force here locally in Austin had said he went ahead and pre-planned and pushed all the trauma centers to the map, right? So when things went sideways, people didn't just freak out and start stepping on each other on the radio asking, where are you? Where is he? Where's the ambulance? Where's the hospital? Those kind of questions. So that's one that resonates with us. It gets people's attention. So just wanted to share that real quick. Guys, I'm not a Zoom expert, so maybe I shouldn't have done that. Stop share. There we go. Sorry about that. Other thing I'll say, because it's GOTS, like AJ said, a lot of money gets poured into this, right? A lot of federal users use it. The DoD is a pretty big one. FBI is a big one. Customs and Border Protection is a big one. They have deep pockets, and so they make things happen from an integration standpoint that wouldn't be possible, I think, otherwise to piddly public safety agencies, even decent sized ones like mine. I'm going to paste this little link in the chat. It's just a very short YouTube video because I think video looks like crap usually when you're trying to do video in a video conference. We've obscured the call signs in this. A lot of you, if you've seen me present, you've probably seen this video, but if you didn't know, this is an example of augmented reality in an aircraft. All right, we're using a shot over aircraft computer system. And because we're running a TAC server, we've connected for free that shot over computer to our TAC server. And as a result, when our tactical flight officers are moving their camera around live in the air, they see the augmented reality of where our people are at. I mean, I call it like video game level technology, and we didn't pay for that. You know what I mean? Of course, we had to have an internet connection. We had to have a helicopter. We had to have the requisite equipment, but that's not something we're paying a license cost for, and it's going to save lives. So I think I will leave it at that.
Thanks, Jared. And to round us out, Cory, I'm going to make you spotlight here.
Awesome.
And for everyone else, just after Cory's done talking, we are going to open the floor to questions and comments. So based on anything you've heard, we want to hear from you. So just be aware of that. So Cory, floor is yours.
Yeah. So can you see this, Kevin?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a kind of smaller. I can see your entire computer screen, and it's sort of small.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. That's not what that was supposed to do. How about that?
Yep, better.
Okay. So this, I actually happen to have a screenshot from the video that Jared was talking about, and you can see the dots in here directly from that. So the video is great to see it, but I just wanted to show that, and we also have used that on our own event. So this is from drones, where we're seeing that augmented reality of where our units are at. And to me, like TAC, I'm very, very passionate about TAC. So my background from a technical rescue, from a fire side, like just like Dave was talking about, I started in fire rescue with us using box maps, hand drawn, quad maps of where things were at, and having to look that up and figure out where we were going, and flip maps to figure out how to get there. So we saw that, and as we needed to drive around and update these maps and make sure things were there, and then we have to copy them and send them out to everybody, all the other stations. And so but I think the other thing, to me, the passion from TAC came from early in my career, we were where we were at stationed as a fire department was like a rural part of a very large county. And we often ran fires and incidents where we had no radio comms with our communications. And the frightening thing would be pulling up onto a scene of a house fire. We're going in, we're making entry, and hopefully people know where we are. Hopefully they can hear us on the radio, because we didn't know. We didn't always know if our comms were going to be heard, and if people could see where we were at. And then 3 years ago, so like 25 years later, 20 years later, we're out in the Smoky Mountains doing a search. We get cornered by a bear, and it's that same exact thing. We have no cell signal. We have very limited radio signal. We're working off paper maps. Nobody knows where we are. And it's like, it's been 20 plus years. Certainly we've got a better system than that. And so for us, kind of as AJ has talked about and several other ones, I mean, TAC from its beginning comes from this notion of Blue Force tracking, from special forces deployment, where there is no network to connect to. There are no cell phones, or we may not want, cell data and things like that being communicated, but we still need to know where each other are. And so I think that the biggest benefit of TAC, and as somebody who has deployed for hurricanes, who has deployed for wilderness searches, who's done a lot of, off-grid stuff, the fact that TAC works in these situations where so many other tools that command gets excited about. But as somebody who's like, it's 9:30 p.m., we've got a water rescue. We don't have any cell data. Nobody knows where we are, because this thing never assumed that you wouldn't have cell data. TAC doesn't have that problem as much. So that mesh networking, and then when we do connectivity, whether it's cell data or whether it's satellite backhauls or whatever it is to get back to the tax server, suddenly we expand that common operating picture, and everybody can see where we are. And so, in this particular case, and we can talk about in Western North Carolina for Hurricane Helene, which knocked out most of the comm systems out there. We had Swiftwater teams deploying, and their command, the command that was there didn't know where those teams were because they were going downriver and there was no other comms that were there. So the ability to say, we can know where those local teams are and then backhaul through Starlink or Iridium or whatever we happen to have, at a little more centralized point, and send that back for everybody to be able to see. And the fact that we're doing this over open protocols and open communications and open source is a huge deal, because then we can start integrating all kinds of other data into this. So Jared was talking about aircraft and drone data, video feeds from there. We can federate other servers. We can, work with AVL systems and cradle points and feed those location data in, or just build our own custom trackers and put them on there, or do all kinds of custom integrations. So I saw Paul Clifton's on here, right? He's done a lot of work about SARTOPO and CalTOPO with two-way data feeds. How do we do ArcGIS? How do we feed in CAD data and ADS-B data? This badge I kind of have here in the bottom left, the AND kit, is like jokingly kind of what I refer to TAC as, because we can have this ability of, as Jared said, as a piddly small public safety system compared to, the giant DoD, we can still step back and go, we need something, and build it if we've got some of that that capability and that understanding. As Jared was talking about, whenever we get to these large incidents, we had a school shooting here in North Carolina. You have 3 EMS agencies, 8 or 9 law enforcement agencies, 5 different fire departments, multiple emergency management, multiple hospital systems. Yes, they all have radios, right? But and yes, we do have some interop channels that they can switch to, but how we cross and provide that situational awareness, when that is the only way that we can provide that common communication, means that it's super chatty. And the biggest use case, I would say, from a TAC perspective, that makes me passionate about this for these incidents, is a law enforcement officer came out of a building. He had multiple students with him. He was trying to get them to a safe place. He got on the radio. He was like, I'm coming out of, this building. I've got 5 students. Where do I take them? And they were like, take them to Taylor Hall. And he was like, I have no idea where that is. Because these are multiple law enforcement agencies coming to a campus that they don't normally operate at, that they don't know. And so now you've got communications not wasting, but like spending precious radio time trying to figure out where that person's at and how to guide them where they need to be. Whereas if we've got a common operating picture, and we can take TAC and we can have everybody on that map, and we can say, here's the casualty collection point. He can glance down at his device and say, okay, I see where I'm at and I see where I need to go. Let's move to this next spot. And when I teach law enforcement, I'm like, if you have your gun drawn, I don't want you looking at your device. But hey, now we're currently in a safe place. Let me see where we're at. We've got a bloodhound line to where we need to go. I see where the next spot that we're going to move to is. We'll move to here and I'll reassess. Suddenly now, A, we know where that person's at, and B, we're not having to spend that time on radio traffic trying to get them to a spot. And so that's why, like, for me, and like AJ was saying, and Dave was saying, and Jared was saying, TAC is responder safety and security. We've got your back, even ever, in this case, we can't see you on video, but we can see you through the trees. We can spot, command can see where it is that we're looking at. We just have a better picture of everything. All of this, and the element that I'm coming at this from is, I also have a background in technology. And so to me, I look very closely at, if I'm investing in a platform, am I investing for a company that is going to just take that and use that and make it a closed, walled garden? Or is this something that I can build and give back to the community to invest in? So what you're seeing on the screen is how TAC clients talk to each other and talk to the TAC server. If you're familiar with XML, it's just XML messages going back and forth. It's a relatively easy format to understand. It's also a relatively easy format to connect and read from, and also to write to. And so because we've got TAC built on this from a secure perspective, and we're able to communicate with everything, that opens up a world of possibilities. So those of you who probably who know a little bit about my background, we had a lot of frustration on the iOS platforms about the difference between the existing iOS clients and what we were doing for ATAC, because when we would deploy in device type environments, we were writing two separate guides, two separate operational guides, two separate training guides, and I felt like we needed something different. And so I was able to take these open protocols, all this open source, the open nature of the community, and build clients on top of everything that was there, and then turn around and use those for other things and give those things kind of back to the community. And this is something we see time and time again. I mentioned, the work that Paul's doing, that, lots of other people have done around building out tools and technology that is enabling us to have amazing integrations with TAC. So the last thing I'll kind of say is, who uses TAC, and even more people than in this map, use TAC. Where we're at with TAC, and I think that this is, if I was going to say there's a slight downside to it, we are in this early adopter phase and maybe starting to get into what's called the early majority phase. But what that really means is that TAC has been so far designed and used within departments that are willing to invest in custom building pieces of it, custom integrating things, kind of working through that. As we roll out and as we try to reach the latter part of this curve, and we try to say, hey, we want every firefighter using this, we want every cop using this, we need the ability to say, we can do, like right now, we can't set call signs. You have to set it on your own device, and that can be problematic. Or team colors or those kinds of things. So there's a lot of work happening in the community to make TAC friendlier to a larger group of people by making it easier to configure and to set and to build all that. And again, all of that is that open source work that we're from. But at the end of the day, this is, what you're seeing here. This is Hurricanes Helene and Milton happening effectively at the same time. Us deploying on searches, us deploying across state, local, federal, National Guard, deploying SAR teams, and all of us working from one common map to be able to see all this, whether it's that or whether it's, here's the New York City Marathon, we've got Mardi Gras, we're able to see things, large music events, right? Like suddenly we're coming together to use TAC as a common operating picture, not just for a single agency, but for everybody that needs to play together and getting that information out there to them. So that's the last slide that I have there, I believe. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Kevin.
Wonderful. All right. It is awesome to see the chat firing up. Jared and AJ, thank you for responding to all that. Don't even quite know where to begin, but I mean, there was a few, even this one right here. Questions on BVLOS and which radio, where to start. Obviously, one of the important things, check out the taxsyndicate.org. That's an important place to start if you are don't know where to start. But the easiest way for right now to open up the community, Chris or Work, I see your camera is on. If you turn your camera on, I'm going to volunteer you and ask and give the floor to you. Try not to talk for more than a minute and a half if possible. We want to let everyone have an opportunity here. We got about 16 minutes left till the top of the hour. We might run a little bit long, so jump off if you need. But Chris, your camera's on, so please tell us your name, give us the context, and ask a question.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Kevin. My name is Chris O'Rourke. I support the Wicker product for AWS, and some of you may not be familiar with Wicker. It's very similar to the commercial encrypted apps that you see right now that are very popular, the WhatsApps and signals and whatnot. One of the things that we really can provide and support for TAC is we have a TAC or ATAC plugin within Wicker. And if you don't mind, Kevin, I just wanted to share my screen for 1 second to show you what that might look like, and then would love to follow up with some individuals if at all possible. What's great about this is we have the ability to support some of the non-radio based traffic where you can share files, and you see it kind of pop up a little bit on the right hand side here. It will pop up and you're able to then create not just text messaging, but also to share video and files within TAC for a common operating picture. We are supporting, I don't know, Cory, I may not have spoke to you before, but we do support some effort down at the southern border with the Army as well as CBP with TAC. I'm working specifically, I'm a former school principal, and there's a significant issue with being able to have federated communications between school administrators, state and local police, fire and rescue, and any type of state or federal response. And I've been working like mad to try to get people to break down communication silos. Radios will always be number one, but then the ability to have federated communications, utilize TAC like heck, but then also to be able to snap a picture, share a file, and see exactly where everybody's at. And you don't necessarily all have to be on the same TAC server to be able to do that. So just wanted to throw that out there, here to support, and would love to talk with anybody down the road.
Thanks, Chris. Cory, Jared, AJ, Zader, anything you want to comment on that before I throw it to Colt and Alex to ask their questions and comments?
No, I played with the Wicker plugin a couple years ago. I think a lot of this on the team did when Matt was with AWS still Wicker. So yeah, super familiar, cool product.
Cool. All right, thanks, Chris.
Kevin, I'd like to address some of the things I've been seeing in the chat, if that's okay, real quick, about something else.
Yeah.
So we kind of mentioned about TAC being open source and TAC security. I just wanted to really quickly say, we use TAC at the highest levels of government and DoD, and you can make it as encrypted as you need it to be, secured as much as you need to be. So it really comes down to your own set of things. The open source nature also of TAC, there's a lot of people who may not be familiar with how open source works. The code is released publicly, but they do not accept random, pull requests from outside people. Everything that gets put into TAC is fully vetted and security scanned and everything else like that. So there's a lot of security behind this. Again, we're using it at the federal side in DC for national security events and for classified networks and everything else like that. So it is a very highly secure platform. It really comes down to your agency and how you set some things up with it. So.
Well said, Cory. All right, we'll throw it to Colt, then Alex, and then Naga. But Colt, what do you got?
Hey guys, Colt here from Caledon, British Columbia. Work with Clean Fire Rescue, and we get deployed as mutual aid for BC Wildfire Service. We just had a deployment a few weeks back, and I was test piloting. I was using ITAC because I've just got an iPhone, but the organization is currently utilizing Avenza, and there's a lot of things that there's not real-time updates or things like that. And so I was showing off, what you could do with ITAC to one of the TFLs, and he was quite intrigued. And so I'm doing exactly kind of what, Dave was doing, and moving ahead without authorization, but gathering as much information as I possibly can, because the goal is to pitch this to the leadership and show them basically how we can. I mean, there all the plugins and everything like that. Like we got $30,000 drones that are just flying around AI, taking pictures of hotspots and stuff. And so I just was kind of curious as to how can I pitch this to the organization and show them that this is going to serve them a whole lot better than Avenza is, because they're asking me if I would be willing to teach some people on how to use Avenza. But I already know kind of from my usage of ITAC over the deployment that there's a whole lot more that you can do that I think would serve our community better. And we're working with other agencies too, AirOps, RCMP, SAR, everything like that. So yeah, just a lot of it. Yeah, need a lot of advice. So I don't know if it's better to
No,
to
we got you, man. We got you. So I just want to point out you've got a lot of resources in Canada that are already using TAC that we can link you up with for sure. So as you know, the Royal Count, the whatever the RCMP, I always get that wrong. The Mounties, yes,
yeah.
they're big users of TAC. So it really like it brings that interoperability between fire and law enforcement immediately together as a tool we can both use. I've also introduced you to some folks up there that are looking to do TAC deployments for across all kinds of different on the private side too. Just oil and gas folks that are out in the middle of nowhere that need tracking and they've got remote workers. So it's not just you think about not just your blue sky day. I'm sending out a crew to go explore this well. Well, then if something doesn't go well, like where are they? What can we use? How can we communicate with these folks? Maybe they don't have cell. What other options are there? So it can be useful, left of bang, right of bang. And you're right. Like I see this a lot, like video or pictures, but if they're not geospatially referenced, how can I make them actionable? At that point, I'm just looking at a picture. If I have to ask where this is, it's not doing its job, you know. So you'd be glad to help you out. We do have um, a network for public safety folks to get together on Slack and kind of communicate and collaborate on and getting folks like you a way forward and to help tell your story.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that the biggest downfall of TAC is the fact that it's not a commercial solution with a marketing budget. You have to hear something enough times before it resonates with most people. And there's not a marketing team, like that was it Avenza and Esri and all the other places that have commercial products that are spending a lot of money to keep those names in front of you all the time. And so, every person that joins on the bandwagon and promotes TAC is just helping the cause. So just bringing it up helps that.
And Cole, I want to add one other thing. So the Canadian Defense Forces hosts a thing called Cloud TAC, which is different than the Colorado one for those familiar with it. And I linked to the article that's there. They provide, my understanding in talking with their leadership is that they also provide free TAC hosting for public safety agencies across Canada. So definitely worth checking that out. And I can connect you with them because my understanding is they make that super easy. And then you have also a lot of those use cases and resources available to you from that as well. So, and here in the US, kind of, I know AJ was mentioning, our other stuff. We have the TAC Public Safety nonprofit. So if you're a small agency whose state doesn't host a TAC server, like Texas hosts one, Colorado, North Carolina, Florida, California. So if you're in an area that doesn't have that, TAC Public Safety, like we can help you set up or connect you to ours to let you be able to try out, TAC and get a sense for it as well. So feel free to reach out to us about that.
No, I definitely will because I'm going to have to do a lot of the work, like 90% of the work on my own. And I'm totally good with that because I believe in it. But I just want to have like an ecosystem sort of set up to show them. So that would be really helpful. And
yeah, we can get you an attack server if you're not in attack server already. Get you place to kick the tires in your own environment and really show this off. We all started like you, just like you, Colt. I got a phone call from a guy and showed me some stuff, and I was on a wildfire. And the next 2 days, I had live MQ9 data. So I feel for you. We're here for you. The reason I stood up the tax syndicate is because there wasn't all these resources, and I started making videos and to kind of show this off. We're all passionate about it because we know there's nothing else like it. Really, at the end of the day, I put a link to my YouTube channel on there. I've got a lot of vignettes on there on what can be done on a wildfire with TAC.
Cool.
Just to correct, I started when there was no TAC server.
You being here and asking the questions is why we're hosting these events and
color icons. If you got color icons, you're an OG.
Thanks, Colt. So make sure to read on LinkedIn and all the links there. So next, I'm gonna throw it to Alex Gorsuch.
Hey y'all. So first, this is awesome to see all of you on a panel. I've all learned a ton from all of you, so really cool to hear y'all talking together. I guess one question though, and probably won't surprise any of you who know me. I mean, what are the challenges to scaling TAC? Like, it's this beautiful product that our tax dollars already paid for. It's battle tested. It's robust. It's to some of the questions as secure as you make it. Like, why doesn't everybody use it? What are the challenges to scaling?
I'm going to kick
Marketing.
Jared. I'm going to
Management
Dave and
for-
Jared. I'm going to volunteer them.
Huh?
I mean, I could say from my experience, like and where I'm at a small medium fire department, right? So I'm not Los Angeles County where you've got, huge, but we got the same problems that LA County has, right? We have rail, freeway, schools, hazmat team, wildland urban interface. But it's much easier for like a department my size that has 7 stations to take an idea like this and pitch it and prove it real quick. So I feel for the folks that have these large organizations that have barriers. But even within my own experience, we had iPhones on the fire engines that were grossly overdue for replacement, and I'm bringing this idea to bring an Android phone on the fire engine. I have an iPhone here. I'm on a Mac. It's cool. Like I bring an Android in at the time, it was the only way you could run TAC. I mean, there was the original iTAC, but you couldn't get it. So I think that is one of the barriers. There is this kind of like, oh, it's on Android. Oh, it's so hard, but it really isn't. I've got plenty of videos to show people how to do it. The next comes, okay, so now, we've got iTAC out there, and Cory's got a competitor called TAC Aware. We've kind of broken that barrier down. But now we got stuff like, hey, maybe everybody doesn't need a phone. So maybe it is, a smartwatch. No, maybe it is this running TAC from a guy I know named Alex Gorsuch, who runs. So, I mean, that you can run TAC on this, so it's so flexible. But you are, I remember the barriers I went through. There was some folks trying to crush it a little bit because there was just, you're going to take away my iPhone. And I was like, no, Chiefs, we're going to bring you a really cool tablet, that looks like this. And then you're going to run TAC on this because you're stuck at the command post. I'm going to have the phone, or now I'm going to have the watch dismounted. So, as far as scaling though, when you're looking at state level stuff, there's a lot that goes into it, servers and user management. I'm not going to talk so much about that. But you are going to have to prove it out. And I would say, come up with requirements, talk about gaps, talk about like, reflect on previous incidents. And then, all right, is TAC a fit? Does TAC fill these gaps? And then talk about all the different tools from a phone to a tablet to a watch, or just, Cory's got these simple little trackers. Hey, we can just have this little tracker. It doesn't even have a screen on it. It doesn't do anything but send your location. So it's just super flexible. But Alex, I don't know if that answers your question, but as far as scaling,
Any other comments around scalability or issues, challenges of scalability or solutions that come to mind for you with scalability and TAC before we throw it to Naga?
The one thing I'll say is, if you're thinking about hosting, so like Jared, and Texas DPS hosting, you have to be an identity provider as well. And so that's the thing. It's like, if you've got a small group of people, it's really easy to set up a server. But whenever we've got at a state level or federal level or those kinds of things, suddenly we've got to think about, well, what happens when somebody leaves the department and manages that? And so identity management, connecting, like, it does definitely require you to dive in and learn the technology. I've seen in the chat some people talk about, like, it's not super easy to set up, and that is true. Like, it is nice that it's free. You are paying for that with your time and elbow grease and everything else like that. So, but there's a lot of the community can't be beat for supporting each other and helping you through all those things.
All right. I mean, if you want to stay on, we're gonna go for 10 minutes. If not, but feel free to peel off. But Naga, your camera's on. You got a little device or something there. What do you got?
This is 5 Exosystems puck this is a tracker puck that was screenless. This is answering like AJ's comment earlier, of headless devices that you can stick on a vehicle, sync up over Bluetooth, and leave and forget sort of deal. And put into your battery system through like 12 volts over here. And these systems and devices are coming down in price, and they're not like $10,000. This is only 850, and I think like $200 a year for Iridium service. I don't remember how much they're charging, but something like that, less than 1,500 a unit. My main question was, how do I get to more people? Like, I got a lot of questions that are answered here today about how customers are using TAC, because I'm on the startup side and I'm building a lot more sensors and products for use cases and trying to keep the cost down. Like for thermal sensors, the problem I'm running into is most departments don't have a 50K budget for a TAC native thermal sensor that can actually do those 100x ranges. What is like, I'm trying to figure out what is a comfortable price point for some sort of fire sensing / correction device.
So, Naga, first I got to ask you, you're attacking those glasses right now? I know you are.
Oh, I wish. I have Brilliant Labs is a great solution. I'm playing with them. I'm still waiting on my freaking order. I have the Magic Leap device running ATAC. Magic Leap is an Android device, and it runs ATAC natively. You don't need to do any modifications. So does the Quest. If you did not know that. They're great headsets to start with mixed reality. They suck outdoors. Don't use them outdoors. You'll get yourself killed.
So an answer, but I wanted to ask you a question about what kind of sensor are you talking about, like on an aircraft?
Well, I'm trying to figure out the right form factor, what the more tactical use cases they want. They want nods and MVGs.
Okay, but you want thermal in that. Yeah. That's definitely not, I think that's probably more on the law enforcement side. You know, for us, for thermal, for wildfire, you know, we're just going to use a UAS and do a scan. There was a great call we did with Nova this morning and with DJI talking about that sort of stuff, and Nova's brought some TAC integration in. So, but I think definitely on the law enforcement side, yeah, if you want thermal and nods, you know, or some sort of glasses, I don't know what the right price is for those folks.
For your question,
Yeah.
you see,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Zed Nadler had put something in the chat that he's willing to have you on his show, maybe have a more focused conversation about product and pricing and features. So maybe, I mean, appreciate the question, but that might be a more appropriate environment to talk about that. Zader, I'm not sure if you have anything to add there.
No, pretty much the same thing. Just it'd be tougher. That's not normally the public safety fire side, or you know, this side of the conversation. More DoD centric, probably.
So want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. Seeing a couple people peel off, but Cory, Jared, AJ, and Zader, any kind of final comments, 30-second sort of mic drop type moments, if you could give us about something to leave us with here today.
You know, I'm always going to leave you with this one, Kevin. Be brave enough to suck at something new, folks. You know, you got to try stuff. You got to kick tires. You got to get out there and fail. And at the first time it doesn't work, not just give it up. It's worth the effort.
Zader.
Yeah, I'd say find a buddy that's interested in that technology. I think AJ had Mike, and that's where it grew from. It's a lot more. You're going to get a lot more if you can find a buddy to tinker around with this than you will just trying to go on it on your own. Find somebody to mess around with it, and even if it's just firing up, you know, Wi-Fi puck and working on TAC and you know, the peer-to-peer environment without a server, it'll work. Just, you know, $39 device with its own battery.
Jared.
Yeah, 30 seconds isn't enough time to mic drop on user management, nor how to get people to the right balance of CAD versus TAC integration, or how the field can operate with headquarters. But feel free to message me on the side. I would say, look, man, you work with your neighbors all the time. It's going to happen, and the status quo is to have no solution. And it's going to continue to be no solution, and it's going to continue to be no solution, AAR after AAR. we shouldn't be writing those same AARs in 2025 with the exact same shit we wrote the last 10, 20 years. So you have no other plan, I would venture to guess. So I really think you should look at this at least for multi-agency operations. It's incumbent upon you.
Alex, you got your camera on. You want to say anything before I throw it to Cory to finish us off?
Oh, no, sorry. I just reflexively turned it on. Definitely check out the Tennessee TAC event.
Thank you for the plug.
I got one more I can add real quick. It's not, but we are going to do, Cory put a link to these free events or these events coming up. We are going to do one in Southern California, September 24th and 25th in Marietta. This will be a 2-day workshop, some hands-on exercises and a UAS demo. So not like a super deep dive training, but workshop-ish. And we'll get that out soon, Kevin.
Yeah, we'll do that. The event info from Cory. Open.
Yeah, so I guess what my closing thing will be, there's no community like this community. You know, I think we're all practitioners working towards improving what we do every day. And I think that that's what sets so much of this apart. So as you dive in, reach out to us. That's what we're all here to do. That, as AJ said, that's how we all learned by diving headfirst and going, I don't know what I'm doing, but somebody's done this before, and us exploring it together. So you know, please reach out, please, you know, jump in, and as you learn, sharing that back out with with everybody. So Kevin posted CIVTAK Conf coming up in November. We've got the TAC product offsite in August. We're starting to set up these regional TAC events like the one in Tennessee. And we're looking at other events to introduce TAC to, like some drone responder conferences and stuff. So, you know, as you come across things and as you find solutions, don't be afraid to share those and let everybody know what's happening, because that's the inspiration for other people to say, maybe I can do this too.
Kudos. Well, Cory, Jared, AJ, and Zader, thank you all for esteemed guests today. And to everyone that joined us, thank you as well for your time or participating. Be on the lookout for these on a monthly basis. And as Cory said, with the TAC Foundation and other groups, there's events happening almost monthly, if not weekly, for the rest of the year. So get in touch. Definitely reach out to AJ too on LinkedIn if you're looking to get into the Slack group. And thank you again for your time. And I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday and a safe weekend ahead.
Thank you, brother, for putting this on.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.